I never imagined a random encounter at a bookstore cafe would reshape everything I knew about my life. I thought I was simply browsing shelves, wasting an hour on a quiet Saturday like I had done countless times before. But then she glanced at me during our first real conversation and said she would not blame me if I walked away. That single phrase told me she was holding more than just everyday concerns. And somehow, before I could even process it, I already understood I did not want to disappear. My name is Marcus. I am 36 years old, and I live in a fairly average apartment building just outside of Portland. Nothing special. Just gray carpets, creaky floors, and people I wave at, but rarely know by name. I work as a network administrator for a healthcare organization that mostly involves troubleshooting systems, managing security protocols, and acting like everything runs smoothly, when it rarely does. I am not wealthy and I am not remarkable. I cover my expenses, try to maintain some stability, and at some point along the way, I understood I wanted more than casual encounters that faded quickly. I wanted something genuine. That was my state of mind the day I met her. It was a Saturday afternoon when I wandered into a small bookstore cafe near my neighborhood. The kind of spot where staff recognize you if you visit regularly enough. I was browsing the travel section, barely paying attention, when the woman beside me dropped her phone. She did not see it slip from her jacket pocket and land near my feet. I crouched down, grabbed it, and gently touched her elbow. I told her she had dropped it. She spun around, and that was the first moment I truly noticed her face. She had deep blue eyes that seemed exhausted, yet kind at the same time. Her hair hung loose, like she had endured a long week and was not trying to impress anyone. She smiled cautiously and thanked me. Mentioning it would have been chaos if she had lost it. I joked that I typically misplay keys instead of my phone, and she chuckled. Not a forced chuckle, a genuine one, the kind that surprises you unexpectedly. We drifted toward the cafe counter together, and somehow the dialogue kept flowing. We discussed how crowded the place always seemed, how the pastries looked more appealing than they tasted, and how unpredictable the rain had been lately. When it was her turn to order, she asked what I normally chose. I told her I went for a caramel cappuccino with no sugar, and convinced myself it was better that way. She grinned and said she would give it a shot and hold me responsible if it was awful. We ended up lingering near the pickup area waiting for our drinks. Usually, that is when people retreat to their screens, but she kept her focus on me. There was something cautious about her, like she had constructed a barrier, but left it incomplete. She introduced herself as Claire and extended her hand. I shared my name, and when I clasped her hand, I felt it was gentle and slightly trembling, like she constantly balanced between composure and tension. When my order appeared first, I held the cup and mentioned this was the moment where I said, "Nice meeting you," and spent the next several days second guessing myself. She smiled and suggested I could attempt something else. Before my anxiety could interfere, I asked if she wanted to grab a table for a bit. Just drinks, no obligations. She paused for a second like she was sorting through dozens of concerns at once, then nodded for 10 minutes. Those 10 minutes became an hour. We settled near the window and discussed careers, commutes, and how costly living had become. She mentioned she worked at a small legal office, managing files and client intake all day. I told her that sounded exhausting, and she agreed it truly was. She had humor in a subtle way, sharp with her responses, but never forceful. Every time I assumed the exchange would slow down, she brought up something meaningful. At some point, she asked if I lived by myself. I confirmed yes, and briefly mentioned a serious relationship that dissolved a few years back. I joked about successfully maintaining 3 succulents and calling that growth. She laughed, but something lingered beneath it, something left unspoken. I did not probe further. Before we parted, I asked if she might be interested in grabbing lunch sometime. Somewhere without the smell of burnt espresso. She glanced down at her cup, then returned her gaze to me, hesitation and curiosity mixing in her expression. She said yes softly. We traded numbers, and that evening we exchanged a few messages. Nothing intense, just straightforward texts that felt comfortable. When the following Thursday arrived, I showed up early to the restaurant. I always do when something matters. It was a cozy Thai place with warm amber lighting. When she entered, she appeared relaxed, just slightly more polished. The conversation resumed right where we left off. It felt natural, authentic, like neither of us was performing for the other. Then, somewhere between appetizers and the main dishes, she grew silent. She fiddled with her napkin and avoided eye contact. When I asked if everything was all right, she inhaled deeply and said she disliked keeping secrets. She looked directly at me and said she would not judge me if I chose to leave. Then she revealed she had 3 kids. The world went quiet around me. Not because she had children, but because of how she spoke it. Like it was something she anticipated would drive me away. She mentioned most people did exactly that, she said. I owed her nothing. I watched her trembling fingers and the way she was already bracing for rejection. And in that instant, I recognized something undeniable. It did not frighten me at all. After that first proper date, I drove home with an unusual combination of peace and certainty settling firmly in my chest. I kept replaying her words. The way she said she would not judge me if I left. The reality was straightforward. I did not want to leave. I wanted to understand her more. Not the guarded version she presented to strangers, but the authentic person behind the weary eyes and careful words. The next morning, I sent her a brief message. Good morning. Hope you slept well. She responded within minutes, saying she barely rested because she was replaying everything, but she appreciated me reaching out. That became our pattern. No dramatic declarations, no facades, just honest, grounded check-ins that felt reliable. Over the following days, we communicated whenever possible during my coffee breaks, on her train ride back, late at night, when she was sorting laundry or finishing reports. She shared she had not dated seriously in nearly 5 years. Not because she did not desire connection, but because whenever someone discovered she had kids, they gradually vanished. I could detect the exhaustion in her voice when she explained it. Not bitterness, just fatigue. One evening, I stared at my phone for several minutes before composing a text. I typed it, erased it, then typed it once more. Finally, I sent the honesty. I told her having kids did not intimidate me. I meant what I said. She did not respond immediately, and I worried I had overstepped. Then she wrote back explaining she did not want her circumstances to burden me. I replied that I was not seeking perfection. I simply wanted to know her. That was the first time she actually called me. Hearing her voice over the line felt distinct, warmer, more vulnerable. We spoke for nearly 2 hours about responsibilities, pressure, and how drained she constantly felt, trying to manage everything solo. She was not attempting to create an impression. She simply wanted to be heard. I listened because I truly cared. By the next Tuesday, we arranged our second outing. Nothing elaborate, just a stroll along a trail near her apartment. When I arrived, she was already waiting in sneakers and a light jacket, her hair tied back in a simple ponytail. She seemed uneasy, adjusting her sleeves, like she was unsure she belonged there. I mentioned she looked great, and she shook her head, but she smiled. We began walking as the late afternoon breeze picked up. Initially, the conversation remained surface level. Work anecdotes, weather observations, scattered thoughts, but midway down the path, she stopped. She studied me like she was reaching a conclusion. She told me her children came first, without exception. She explained she did not have spontaneous weekends or impromptu getaways. Her life consisted of school, projects, bills, medical checkups, and constant exhaustion. She clarified she was not asking to be saved. She just wanted me to grasp the reality before things progressed further. I told her I understood clearly. I told her I was not expecting her to alter anything. She said I might not fully comprehend what I was agreeing to. I told her I did not need complete knowledge up front. I just needed to know if she wanted me present in her life at all. She did not respond right away. She simply resumed walking, and I walked alongside her. The silence felt peaceful, not uncomfortable, like she was granting me access without verbalizing it. As we continued, she spoke about her oldest, how much he enjoyed reading, how responsible and serious he seemed for his age. She mentioned her middle child, how creative and imaginative she was with stories. She talked about her youngest, how he never sat still, how he loved taking things apart. She expressed her fear of failing them, and how she felt perpetually inadequate. When dusk began settling in, she asked me why I was truly there, why I remained when most others disappeared. I considered it briefly, then shared the truth. I said, I did not desire something simple. I wanted something real. That was the first moment I witnessed her guard truly drop. Not entirely, but enough to reveal the woman beneath the apprehension. Before we departed, she mentioned she was not prepared for anyone to meet her children yet, but she wanted to continue seeing me. I told her that was perfectly fine. That night, she texted saying the walk felt peaceful, that my presence made things feel quieter in her mind. I understood something was shifting between us. Gradually, cautiously, but authentically, the week afterward felt transformed. Our exchanges became woven into daily rhythms. She left voice notes when she was too exhausted to type. I absorbed every single one. One evening, she explained her oldest had a major science presentation coming and her youngest had misplaced his library book. I offered assistance, but she said she was not ready for that step yet. I respected that boundary. Then one Sunday morning, she texted asking if I was available. She said She wanted me to meet them, just as someone she knew. I stared at the message for a considerable time, not from fear, but because I recognized its significance. I told her, absolutely. A couple hours later, I pulled up to her apartment complex. Scooters were scattered near the entrance. Sidewalk chalk covered the walkway. It felt like real life existing loudly and unfiltered. She met me at the entrance, nervous, yet optimistic. I reassured her she did not need perfection. She exhaled deeply and stepped aside. That was the moment I entered her world. The instant I stepped through her doorway, I grasped how much trust that invitation represented. The living space looked inhabited. Not chaotic, not immaculate. School papers covered the dining table. A half-finished puzzle occupied the rug. Clean dishes sat stacked, but not yet put away. It radiated warmth in a manner that had nothing to do with heating. Her kids were seated on the floor. Her oldest glanced up first, observant and composed with intelligent, watchful eyes. Her middle child waved shyly, her creativity evident in the drawings scattered around her. Her youngest bounced over immediately, bursting with energy. She introduced me as her friend, and I ensured they controlled the pace. Her youngest asked if I liked space. I told him I did. Her oldest asked what my job involved, and I joked about breaking systems before repairing them. That earned a subtle grin from him. We sat together, and I allowed things to unfold organically. Her youngest talked endlessly about cartoons and experiments. Her middle child spoke less, but when she did, it revealed surprising depth. I sensed her observing me from across the room, evaluating every response, every pause, every gesture I made. She was searching for indications. I might feel overwhelmed. I did not. At one point, her oldest showed me his book report. The analysis was thoughtful. When I acknowledged that sincerely, he seemed pleased. Then, her middle child asked if I could help with her art project. I glanced at her mom before answering, and she nodded gently. I sat at the table with her daughter while her youngest circled us with a toy rocket. Her mom hovered in the kitchen, pretending to prepare snacks, pretending not to monitor every interaction. While we collaborated, her middle child leaned closer and whispered if I was going to visit more often. I paused, selecting honesty over guarantees. I told her I hoped so. She nodded like that response was sufficient. After several hours, the kids moved to their rooms to play. She finally settled on the couch and released a breath she had obviously been containing. She told me I handled it remarkably well. I told her they were wonderful kids. She said they were demanding. I told her everyone is demanding in certain moments, and that did not make them less deserving of care. She observed me for an extended moment. After that, like she was attempting to comprehend how someone could enter her reality and not immediately seek escape. Before I departed, her oldest waved politely, and her youngest shouted goodbye like we had been friends forever. She accompanied me to the door and thanked me quietly. She did not embrace me. She simply touched my shoulder lightly. That small contact remained with me the entire drive home. After that day, something evolved between us. Slowly, naturally, she began allowing me into the complicated aspects of her life. Not just dialogue, but genuine experiences. One evening, she invited me for dinner because the kids asked if I would join. When I arrived, Chaos was already underway. Food cooking, children playing, stress evident on her face. I stepped in without prompting. I assisted with meal prep. I redirected her youngest before he toppled something fragile. I listened to the kids overlap each other during the meal. She watched me from her seat, with quiet appreciation in her expression. Later, when the kids were occupied elsewhere, she sat beside me on the couch and mentioned it. Meant everything that I did not view her life as a burden. I told her I was not present just for convenient moments. That unsettled her. She admitted, positive things rarely seemed to endure for her. I told her we did not need to anticipate conclusions before embracing what we shared. That made her smile. From there, I became integrated into their routine without deliberate planning. Homework assistance. Repairs around the apartment. Sitting together after bedtime, conversing softly to avoid disturbing them. Some nights were calm, some were draining. All of them felt authentic. One Thursday evening, her car stalled after work. She called me frazzled and apologetic. I drove there without hesitation. The starter motor had failed. I told her I would handle it and return the vehicle the following day. She protested I did not have to. I told her I understood. The next morning, when I returned with the repaired car, her youngest sprinted outside announcing I had fixed it. She stood on the steps observing me like I had resolved more than a mechanical issue. She told me she did not know how to process someone consistently showing up like this. I told her she did not need to process it. Just accept it. Weeks progressed. The household grew livelier, fuller. Sometimes her youngest fell asleep beside me on the couch. Sometimes her middle child quietly left her artwork out for me to notice. One night, after everyone was asleep, she sat next to me and said she believed it was time. She asked if I would consider relocating there. I did not respond instantly. Not from uncertainty, but because it carried weight. She explained the kids already viewed me as family. She mentioned I brought stability into the home. I held her hand and told her I wanted to be there with all of them. 6 weeks later, I moved in. No grand announcements, just belongings, tools, books, and a quiet commitment. Life settled into shared mornings and shared duties. We disagreed occasionally, laughed frequently, and consistently found our way back to each other. One evening at dinner, as the kids recounted their day, I felt something anchored deep within me. This was not temporary. This was home. By the time autumn shifted into winter, life in that apartment no longer felt like adaptation. It felt like belonging. The routines emerged effortlessly. Morning coffee while preparing breakfast. Quiet moments before anyone woke. Loud evenings filled with stories, laughter, and the kind of disorder that somehow feels reassuring when it belongs to you. Some mornings, her oldest would sit at the counter, reading before school. Her youngest would race downstairs, asking if I could examine his latest contraption. She would stand in the doorway wearing one of my sweaters, hair messy, smiling like she finally felt secure enough to exhale. Those moments mattered more than any dramatic gesture ever could. Living together was not flawless. There were finances to juggle, exhaustion to navigate, and days that felt heavier than others. When her middle child got injured, we alternated taking time off. When her oldest needed materials for a school fair, We spent an entire Saturday gathering supplies. When she returned, home depleted after a difficult day, I made her tea and sat beside her until she processed it aloud. She was no longer managing everything alone. One peaceful night after everyone was asleep, I discovered her sitting on the balcony, gazing at the city lights. I joined her, and she rested her head on my shoulder. She told me she had been reflecting on how transformed her life felt now, how terrified she had been to trust anyone, how safe she finally felt again. I told her that was all I ever desired for her. Then she inhaled deeply and revealed something that stopped time completely. She said she believed she was pregnant. She was trembling, obviously bracing for concern or hesitation. I felt neither. I held her hand and told her I was present, that I was not disappearing. The relief on her face was immediate. We discussed for hours about the future, the children, the adjustments ahead. There were worries, naturally, but there was also tranquility. We were already family. This was simply another chapter. The next morning, she told the kids. Her youngest leaped from his seat, thrilled to be an older sibling. Her middle child asked gentle, thoughtful questions. Then her oldest looked at me and asked if I was staying permanently. I knelt down and told him yes. He embraced me without reservation. From there, life advanced together. We cleared out the storage room. The kids debated baby names. Drawings filled the refrigerator. Doctor appointments populated the calendar. Some days were exhausting. Some were overwhelming. All of them felt correct. The day we assembled the crib, she stood in the doorway with her hands on her stomach, tears in her eyes. She told me she never imagined she would receive another opportunity at this kind of joy. I told her she deserved it. All of them did. Looking back, I reflect on that first encounter, about how she said she would not judge me if I wanted to leave. The truth is, I never wanted to leave. I wanted to remain. I wanted something genuine. And somehow, by choosing honesty and patience, we constructed a family from second chances and quiet love. That bookstore cafe moment did not just alter my life, it gave me a home.